Welcome to Ken's Corner Podcast, Season 4.
Hi, everyone. This is Ken, Judge and Joe Moyer here for your Four Nations special episode. We're going to talk everything about what's been going on at Four Nations, and we'll try and get you set up for the Saturday's game at 8 o'clock, I believe it is. Weird time to start, I think. But
Yeah,
I
tonight's
guess that,
game's 8 again. It's too late for me. I need my beauty sleep, as you can probably tell, but I don't know why they're doing 8 o'clock. But
well, I'll
anyway.
tell you why. It's because so the West Coast isn't seeing the game at 4 o'clock. I think
Wah, wah,
it, to
wah.
be fair to them, they're Edmonton people are too tired of seeing those Leaf games. But then again, half the place was Leaf fans anyway, so I don't think they care when the Leafs are playing that day.
I don't know about Montreal being many Leaf fans after the introductions of Auston and
Well, yeah, let's
Willie this
talk about
past
that.
week.
Well, I was asked not to be political here, but you know what? We're going to have to dive into that just a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about the introductions for Auston Matthews. Like, could you believe those boos that he was getting there in Bell Center?
I get it. He's public enemy number one. He's the captain of the Leafs, but I think uh, you turn it around. I mean, if he was a nothing player, no one would care. So, I mean, you can just take that and say, obviously, he's an impactful player, and they're trying to get under his skin. And everywhere you've gone over the history of the league, the best visiting player tends to get booed. They booed Gretzky in Toronto when he was, in his heyday, and all the premier players get booed just to try to throw them off their game. But it is kind of a compliment when you look at it that way, Ken. Backhanded compliment. Obviously, if I bug you that much, I must be that impactful and that good of a player.
Well, that's for sure. Auston Matthews said just that in his interview where they asked him that question, and he said, "Well, they wouldn't boo me if they didn't care." But it was much different when Mitch Marner scored that overtime win. I'm surprised they didn't boo him on that winning goal because he's a
Well, when Canada wins in overtime, they're all going to cheer, and he's playing for Canada at the end of the day. Uh, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen tonight with the U.S. Man, oh man, tell me this isn't a game that everyone should be glued to and will be glued to watching this. Holy, can't wait.
Yeah, well, no doubt. But I do want to address Mitch Marner's play that game, and I guess somewhat William Nylander because, well, we're Leaf fans, and that's what we're here for. But a lot of people are saying, well, they were ghosts. They were ghosts in that game. And I'll be honest, when that Shea Theodore injury came up and it became real that we could lose players here. I don't know how Vegas feels about losing one of their top defensemen because I sure as hell don't want that to be Auston Matthews or Mitch Marner or Willie Nylander getting jammed into the board. And it was a little different story. People were putting it up there on Twitter. Oh, Marner's a ghost. Where is he? And then he scores that overtime goal and puts that right back down their throat. What a crazy game that was.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fast game right from the get-go, and having fans cheer Mario Lemieux and Crosby and seeing the great players. I mean, that obviously boosted Canada right out of the gate. They got up to a 2-0 lead. But I agree. I think in the first period there was a couple of players that I thought were standing there going, "Oh man, what's going on here?" And I thought Mitch Marner was one of them, Drew Doughty being the other. I didn't think he had a strong game. He looked a little step behind, but I think Mitch Marner adapted as the game went on. I noticed him more in the second and third periods creating plays, and it's going to take some time to gauge the speed of the game but B, kind of figure, get your footing, get confident, get to know where each other is. So I kind of thought it was a case of that. Now, if they played game in and game out, might be a different story. But I could tell there was a couple of players that were like, "Holy, this is fast." I mean, McDavid in the first period just was like he was a rocket ship out there. You just couldn't stop the guy. So it's an adjustment, but good players find a way to break out and come through. And Mitch Marner in overtime, hey, listen, it's shinny hockey in overtime, right? There's no clutching, grabbing, hitting. It's all wide open, lots of space to maneuver, and that's right up Mitch Marner's alley.
Well, yeah, Mitch Marner stated that's possibly one of his biggest goals he's ever scored. And
Oh, by far, yeah.
well, maybe his first goal in the NHL, he said, but to be set up by the player that he grew up wearing his jersey and cheering for, although he was a Toronto person, he grew up wanting to be Sidney Crosby. And who else could have made that pass going in over the line and between the legs back pass that hit Marner right in stride?
Is Sidney Crosby not the greatest Canadian hockey player of all time representing his country? I don't think you can argue. He is just everything he's touched has been successful. He hasn't lost a game wearing a Team Canada shirt. I mean, the guy's 37 years old and was the best player on the ice, making plays, 3 assists in his first game, leading by example. What can you say that hasn't been said about the guy? I mean, he's just incredible. And internationally speaking, whenever he puts that Canada jersey on, he's something special.
Yeah, he's 26-0 in the last 15 years. When
Wow.
Crosby plays in that game, they have not lost a game in
Incredible.
26 straight games. That's just insane. I hope that continues. The Americans do scare me, that big 6-1 win. But I want to talk a little bit about Brad Marchand. Did he almost become lovable? Like after the game, did you see the clip where he said, "Wow, I was the biggest fan out there. You guys are amazing. Mitchie, what a goal. Mitchie, what a goal." Like, oh my God, he was almost lovable, wasn't he?
Listen, Brad Marchand is the kind of guy you love to hate, but you want him on your team. And I've always said that if the Leafs had an opportunity to get him, as much as you despise his antics, you get a chance to get a guy like him, and off the ice and behind the scenes. And there's been a couple of little documentaries on him, but he's not the player on the ice. He's actually quite a nice, supportive, calm guy that gives a lot back to the community. And you don't see that side of him, of course, because he's painted as the villain from the other 31 teams in NHL, and he certainly acts like that when he's on the ice. But it brings a winning pedigree. He's a team guy first. And it says a lot about him, the fact that when it comes down to it, I don't want to play against him, but if you're on your team, you want him on your side and you're glad you have him on your side.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, I will go back to yelling at him on TV as soon as he gets that B jersey back
Absolutely.
on him. And apparently, Boston's management has said Marchand is going nowhere. He will finish his season in Boston, regardless where they sit in the standings. So, unfortunately, it won't be this year that we see him with the Leaf jersey on. But you're right. I used to despise Darcy Tucker, especially when he beat up Steve Thomas at one time when he was playing for Tampa Bay. And then come to Toronto, I was right there wanting a Darcy Tucker jersey as soon as he landed in Leaf colors. So you're bang on in that assessment. Now let's talk about that American game and more. Let's talk about the Kachucks. Oh my God. Was that not a scary performance by the Kachuk brothers, becoming the first brother duo in American history to score goals in a international game?
Chip off the old block, Dad Keith, power forward, and they followed in his footsteps. They are going to be formidable. I don't. I watched the game the other night, Finland and US. It wasn't as fast a game, and certainly the first period was a little cautious. But when they made that adjustment in the third and put the brothers on, that was scary. My take is Canada is faster. I think we have better talented forwards. Goaltending and defense remains to be seen. But I think if we can stay disciplined, which we did against Finland, we didn't take, or sorry, Sweden, we didn't take one penalty. We kept our sticks in check. We played well. And if you can let USA run around a bit and take some penalties, you saw the power play I saw. I was laughing. I was giddy after those 2 goals. And I was just like in the first period going, Canada's just making this look easy, especially with the man advantage. It was sick. So if we can get some power plays out of this, I think that might give us the edge over the Kachuk brothers.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I'm sticking with our Canadian boys, that's for sure. I'm a little scared of this game, but you know what? This is a game that all these players have been dying to play in just to see where it lands. And it's going to be real fun as fans to watch that. And honestly, I hope Auston Matthews does well in that game. He now, if you want to count the last game, is going on 7 games since he last scored, although he did hit a crossbar. How was your assessment of our team captain and US's team captain, Auston Matthews?
Yeah, I think it was a good first game. I think he did get an assist. He finished with 1 point, did hit the crossbar. obviously was a force when he was out there. I wonder about the line combinations, like the line combinations you may see in the first part of the first game. Is that going to be the same all the way through? We don't know. I mean, Canada's had to make an adjustment, losing Shea Theodore, into the first period. That was just heartbreaking to see. You feel so bad from, arguably one of our best defenders has gone out, and it sounds like he's going to miss some time when the NHL starts. For them to say right after the game, his tournament's done, they knew it was bad enough. There was something obvious there that was going to keep him out for a bit. They only got one defenseman left to call up, and they did. So we'll see if that makes a difference. But if we go down another player, it could become that war of attrition. And the same with any team. If they lose a top of the line player to an injury, and we talked about this, I think, Ken, earlier. Like, do you want to see Auston Matthews break an ankle, blocking a shot, putting it all out there for Team USA? I certainly don't. I certainly don't want to see Mitch Marner injured or William Nylander for that matter. But that's a huge risk that these guys are taking, and we'll cross our fingers that that's it, no one else.
Yeah, I hope so because any player lost at this point in the season is obviously going to be detrimental to your playoff hopes and wishes moving forward. Now, yeah, that American game, that was crazy. It was 2-1, and I was hoping Finland would, and the fans were clearly behind the Finnish boys. I don't know if that had to do with politics more than the fact that, yeah, Joel Armina, and Patrick Laine, of course, and Lehkonen, who used to play there, Arturi Lehkonen. That might be the reason they were back in the Finns as well. But that third period push from the Americans was second to none, that's for sure. As far as our defense goes, I do want to say that Canada did bring another defenseman on an emergency basis, Dallas defenseman Thomas Harley, I believe his name is. I don't know a hell of a lot about him. Now, how do you feel about Travis Sanheim stepping into play for the Canadian team? Like, shouldn't that spot have been given to someone like Mackenzie Weegar or Chris Tanev? Would you have felt a little more comfortable with that moving forward?
Yeah, of course I would, but the roster was only limiting them to 7 defensemen they could put on the final roster, and they weren't on the final roster. So it's Sanheim up for now. My understanding is Sam Bennett is playing tonight. A little bit of sandpaper there, I guess, to maybe answer some of the American stuff. I hope he stays disciplined, but he's known to be running around a little bit and maybe getting a little bit too over exuberant. So we're going to have to wait and see how it goes. But it's a 4-game tournament, and I have no issues putting a fresh body in here or there. And you don't know who's banged up behind the scenes as well. So it is what it is. Would I love to see Uyghur or Tanev on the back end? Of course, but they weren't in the 7. So it is what it's going to be.
Well, there is another fact that we're playing with. Yesterday, Cal McCarr did not practice because of illness. Hopefully, that new defenseman we just brought in isn't forced into that position, because that would be quite the blow, considering McCarr played, I think, half the game after Theodore was gone for that injury.
I think he'd have to be very, very sick with something to miss the game. Like I said, Crosby, there's no way he's missing that tournament if you have to freeze his arm and bandage him up or whatever his issue was. Makar will hydrate and get back healthy, and I would be shocked if this is a once in a lifetime for these guys for now, and he'd have to be on death's door to not play as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I think Theodore's injury was probably an obvious fracture and fractured wrist or forearm or
Yeah,
something. For
that
them to
makes
come right out and say he's done, he's probably got a cast on it, and it is what it is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense to me as well. Now let's talk about Mitch Marner. I know I keep going back to this goal that he scored. What does that do for Mitch Marner's confidence moving forward? I mean, for this game tonight and forward into Maple Leaf season, which is of more importance to us Leaf fans.
Well, I think as Leaf fans, we're all hoping that whatever these guys take from this tournament that brings back and helps elevate their game. Certainly, like you said, Auston Matthews was 6 games without a goal. I thought maybe all the players that were in the tournament were sort of not leaving it all out there and taking it a little bit easy. They didn't want to get hurt, put themselves in vulnerable positions. Whereas I think come closer to playoff time, you will see that. So I think that Mitch Marner, that will only prove to him that he belongs with the big guys and can score a goal, and he certainly can. And I don't think any of us thought he couldn't. But it's certainly nice to get. I think arguably the biggest goal of his career, hear the fans behind him. That's only going to boost your confidence, and instead of going pointless, going, oh, I don't know if I belong with these guys, right? It's human nature. I would feel the same way, and Matthews is Matthews. He's an elite player, and I don't think he'll have any issue. I can't wait till you want to talk about Willie Nylander, though. I'm all fired up for that one.
Uh, okay. Well, this Mitch Marner, by the way, he scored that goal. And if you look back on the overtime goal earlier in the season where Mitch Marner had the exact same goal, he scored it on Jacob Markstrom of the New Jersey Devils. Uh, do we need Mitch Marner off of Auston Matthews' line so he isn't passing maybe a line of his own to drive?
I think you got to run with him off the line for a bit. I know they started it just before the break, and they're trying to get Domi going with Matthews. I didn't see much from Domi again when he was on Matthews' line with Nyes. I think you give it a few more games coming back. I mean, it's always a go-to option if we need to. They can probably pick up where they left off. They're that good. But I would like to see Marner with Tavares and see. I think they had some chemistry last year as well. See if they can get. We need to get some depth, but we can't just keep relying on Matthews, Marner, and Nyes and McMahon. And then whenever Willie decides he wants to feels like chipping in. Other than that, we don't have a lot of scoring. And Tavares, I think, is just coming back from that injury, so I don't think he's 100% yet. So yeah, I think the more we can see them spread out, the better, and the harder it is to defend. What I do want to say about Marner is I think I like the fact that he's shooting this year as opposed to looking for a first pass. I think he could probably give Domi a lesson or two. And sometimes when you're in the right, you just got to shoot. And Marner's got a good shot, a nice, accurate, fast shot, good wrist shot. And I think Domi, a lot of times this season, I've seen him set up and he's looked for that pass or passed off, and it's cost him. So I think Marner learned a couple of years ago that, you get the shot, take it, and he certainly did that.
Yeah, in Domi's defense, I did notice he was doing that a little bit more in those last 2 games before the break here. So, but in general, you're right. He's got 3 goals in the season, but we're not here to talk about Domi. But you did set it up for what you wanted to talk about, and that's William Nylander, who, before you start, he is actually the goal leader in the NHL playing in this tournament.
Yeah, because Draisaitl's not there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, he also cost them a goal with his first penalty on his first shift, and that was a power play. So down 1-0, courtesy of a William Nylander high stick, not intentional, but careless with the stick. And then, he had his moments where he looked like he had some danger, and then he had moments where he was floating. I mean, I think he had that one potential breakaway chance that was probably too many men for Canada. That happens. Got away with that one. But I don't think it was an overly strong game for William Nylander personally. I don't think he shone in my eyes.
Yeah, it was kind of weird for me because there wasn't a lot that was standing out for me on that Swedish team, and yet they still took that Canadian team into overtime and deep into that overtime period. So they were doing something right to get to that point. I'm just not exactly sure what it was. Do you have anyone that you want to highlight from the Swedish team?
Well, um, yeah, you're right. Not one player stood out as a player of the game for Sweden, and maybe that's part of the problem, right? There was no one leader that took it by the horns. I thought maybe Nylander could be that guy. Didn't seem to be.
Maybe in that Finland game, maybe it's a little. I don't know. The Canadian team maybe overwhelmed them a little bit. In saying that, they got a point. It's very confusing to me. Is that because of our goaltending? Bennington whiffed on something? Like, how did they?
I didn't like the 2 goals that went on Binnington, but I liked the way he bounced back, and there's an old saying with goalies, it's not the last save you make, it's the next save you make that's important. And he certainly did that in overtime, stoning, I think, two point blank chances off to the side of his net. He came over and stopped. I thought he played well. I'm sure he'll probably get this call again tonight. There's no reason not to. He didn't play terribly. But there were two quick snapshots from the high slot that I thought went through him, or he could have played a bit better. But again, it was the first game, and you make adjustments as a goalie, and that's what good goalies do, is they make adjustments. They look at tape and go, okay, what could I have done better on this long shot, or this deflection, or what have you, or this deke, and try to improve the game. So I think he did enough to go, you know what, when push came to shove and we really needed to make those big saves, he did.
Yeah. Now, this whole setup of the point system right now, because the States Americans, they got that win in regulation time. They sit with 3 points.
Mhm.
We have two because we got an overtime. Sweden would have 1 point, and Finland would have no points. There is a 1 o'clock Saturday game. So by the time this is aired, we'll be able to, that game will already have been played. But now, say Sweden, and they probably should be winning the game against Finland. If they win that game in regulation, now they got 4 points. What happens if we lose to the Americans in regulation?
Well, then we have to beat Finland on Monday afternoon on Family Day at 1 o'clock.
And then Sweden would also have to lose to the Americans. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what makes it interesting. It's not a lot of margin for error, Ken. It's do or die. You hope that point doesn't cost us in the end, but it might. Losing, winning in overtime is great, but 3 points could be the difference. I don't. If the Americans go, let's assume the Americans go straight out. They, 3-6-9 points. You have to pretty much win out to be the second team. So let's see what Canada, assuming they're going to lose to the US, they're going to have to beat, just is what it is, have to beat Finland. So on Monday.
Okay, so here's a time where we make our game time predictions. What do you see, and who's our MVP? Who gets that golden watch for this game?
Well, I'm going to put my money for Canada on Connor McDavid. I think he is just scratching the surface. He's waited too long. He's too good, and I think he'll make a big impact, hopefully for Canada tonight. Like you said, the Kachuk brothers. I really hope Canada stays disciplined, uses their skill, and that wins over the nonsense and the running around, and let US take some penalties and kind of weather the storm, because they'll probably come out flying again, pretty confident after their last win, and let them sit in the box and let's get that power play to work, which is really, really nice to see. That's an incredible power play on paper. You just look and you go, wow, that's unstoppable.
Yeah, and how many times are we going to be able to beat the possible Hart Trophy winner this year, and most certainly the Vezina candidate, the leading Vezina candidate at this point, Connor Hellebuyck? Are we going to beat him more than once?
Yes. And the reason I say that is in big games in the last two playoffs, Connor Hellebuyck has sucked. I thought he sucked on the first goal that Finland scored. I thought that he was way deep in his net. I don't know what he was doing there. It went right under his arm. That's a stoppable shot at any level goaltending. I don't care. That went in. I don't think he was really tested too much after that with any kind of high. If we can get some high tempo, high quality shots and maybe even second chances, I think he's beatable, because you look at his playoff stats the last 2 years, in the toilet. So maybe it's just, regular season, great, but maybe when that pressure's on and he hears the Canadian fans and they'll be loud, maybe that'll get inside his head and we can get to him early.
Well, that's a fact. His last two playoffs were 8-6-4 and 8-8-8 or something ludicrous like that. So
Yeah.
well off of his pace that he's on this year. And you're right. That goal that was scored was a weak one, and there was only 18 shots on the American net in that game. So he didn't have a lot of pressure, that's for sure. So yeah, I'm hoping for a 4-2 or 5-3 win for Team Canada. We'll do it in regulation, and if we don't, then I want Auston Matthews to get that MVP. But I'm going to go with you, and we need Connor McDavid to be the best player on the ice. because he's the best player in the world.
Agreed, and I don't want Auston Matthews to score. I'll wait. I'd rather he score when he comes back as a Leaf. I'm good. I can wait. I got patience. So save it all now, and then your first game back for Toronto, get a hat trick. I'll be totally thrilled. We need all the help we can get for Canada.
I want to say I like your background. It's really cool. You got a lot of neat NHL teams up there. I'm loving the big Calgary Flames because that's somewhere where I lived for a little bit. So I'm a closet Flame fan. But anyway, it's really, really cool to see back there that you're stepping it up a bit, Joe.
Well, my background's usually pretty boring and nothing but a Windows of nothing. So I'm trying to jazz up the studio here. So it's a work in progress. But yeah, give the big C for our buddy Georgie out there, and he's probably just as cold as we are.
Oh, I bet he is. I bet he is, and he doesn't want that C, by the way. Just saying. And as far as I just want to get back to the booing of the anthem just before we sign off here. Now, is this something that's going to force the NHL to maybe just take anthems right out of the game? Would you be okay with that happening? Say next season, no anthems?
No, I think that's giving in. My personal opinion is I don't agree with booing anyone's anthem out of respect for the players who are just there to entertain us. That seriously is what sports is. It's entertainment. These poor guys are out there trying to do their best, and they come from a country and they've devoted their whole life to being the best professional hockey player they can for us. So I think out of respect, despite the politics and as easy as it is, I wouldn't boo. You don't have to make noise or cheer, but certainly I'm not a big fan of the booing of the anthem. I don't think that does any good. That being said, I'm sure it'll get booed quite loudly in tonight, but it is what it is. I don't think that's going to change anything. I think out of respect for players, you should play the anthem before the game. It's a good way to just get you in the mood, get started, and then when the anthem finishes and everybody starts cheering, get you pumped right up.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. As a fan, I mean, I haven't been on the ice during an anthem, but I've been in the stands many, many times. And as a traditionalist, it would be very sad day that we wouldn't be able to hear those anthems in my eyes. Very excited for this game tonight, Joe. All I got to say is go Canada, go. And I can't wait to get back to doing some Leaf talk. We'll see you again here next week. And well, I guess we'll wrap up what happened during this tournament before we head into our new Leaf stuff and trade deadline coming up March 7th. So that's hopefully an exciting time for Leaf fans to get a shiny new toy of a player, and who knows who that is, a winger, a D, a center. At this point, I think we're all just want someone.
Yeah, I think a couple of moves will be happening. I don't know if it'll be the blockbuster, but look forward to it. There's going to be lots to talk about, and let's just start with getting rid of this snow and cold, and let's start getting into some spring. That gets me in the mood for playoffs. So looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Joe. My name's Ken Judge. I'm here with Joe Moyer, and we've been talking about about everything, but Four Nations tournament. That's our center of our attention today. Thank you, Joe, and have a great day and a great weekend.
Thanks, Ken. You too.